name's Crystal. I'm here from the Southgate Public Library, and I'm just going to introduce you quickly to our teen book tasting. So we have 7 different libraries that are here today. We're going to talk about 28 different books. We're going to talk about fiction, graphic novels, and nonfiction. If you have any questions or you'd like to place any comments, you can do so in the chat box, and then we'll read them out loud and answer them at the end of the presentation. Please keep your video and audio turned off. We have set up the screen so you should see the person who's talking, and then as well as the book image when it pops up. If you see any books that you really like, talk to your library, because if they don't have it, they may be able to get it through interlibrary loan, and you can also look for it on Libby app for ebooks. So we're going to start, and I think first up is the Grand Valley Public Library.
Good evening, everybody. I'm here to talk about The Wild. I actually have 3 books that I read. The Wild is by a Canadian author, Owen Laakinen. The main character is a very interesting character. She's a teenager. Her name's Dawn, and she considers herself kidnapped by her mom and stepdad and put into a wilderness boot camp. The boot camp's for children who are messed up, and it's supposed to teach them, make them learn important life lessons. This novel is a fast-paced novel with lots of twists and turns, and I think it's good for anybody. So any teens would be interested, male, female, and any adults. It was a fast-paced, moving book. I really enjoyed it. The second one I have, it's called The Girl on the Run by Abigail Johnson. For years, Caitlin and her mom have been moved around place to place. Caitlin would like her mom to meet someone, so she sets her mom up on an online dating profile. Her mom has very strict rules about online photos. Minutes after her mom finds out, they are on the run, and Caitlin has no idea why. As Caitlin's world unravels, she needs to trust a stranger to help her and find her mom, because her mom goes disappears during this, and helps her. The book helps her answer some of her items in her past that she doesn't have a clue of, that her mom has not told her about. My third one is a fantasy book, very different from the other books. This book is Crown of Bones, by A.K. Wilder. It's adventures galore as a group of friends set off to the Isle of Acue to learn to train and control their phantoms. This group of friends rely and depend on each other, as nothing goes as planned. Everything goes wrong in their adventures. After training, it's a race home to warn their kingdom of a pending attack. And this is where it ends. And of course, there's going to be a sequel. It does not mention if it's a duology or if it's a trilogy or an ongoing book, but you can look for more in the future.
Okay, so my book was called Tell Me When You Feel Something by Vicki Grant. This book follows the events leading up to and following the overdose of the main character. Her name is Vivian. One of the great features of this book is it has really short chapters that keep the story moving and keep you guessing about what happened for that night when she overdosed. And it was a great read. I couldn't wait to get to the end, which is really, because it was really quite exciting. And I would say that this book is geared for all ages, genders, for YA readers.
So I read A Faux Love Story by Loanne Lee. It was a really nice story about 2 teenagers, Vietnamese refugees, and their parents both own restaurants that are across the road from them. And one time, Lynn, the young girl, was at her parents' restaurant, and it was really, really busy because they were having a special on Faux or Pho, and they were never allowed to be together or anything because their parents had some sort of a vendetta against each other. And as the story goes along, they meet up and they start getting to be friends and that, and sneaking around on their parents. I really liked it. It was nice. It was kind of funny. I think it's a nice summer read. And the other one I read was One of Us is Next by Karen McManus. And it's a sequel to One of Us is Lying. Both of the books were very exciting because you never knew until the very end who had done it. One of Us is Next starts out with a character from the other book, Simon's old website, and somebody starts a game of truth or dare in it. And he starts sending out messages about different people. So the first person, Phoebe, doesn't answer her text. And so she gets a truth that ruins her relationship with her sister. And as the book goes along, they keep having these truth or dares until one of the Brandon dies. And then it ends, and then it's a chase to try to figure out who did it or what happened to Brandon. And really till the end, I had no clue. It was a really good read.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie, the Child and Youth Librarian at the Hanover Public Library. Today, the first book I am going to talk about is the book Concrete Rose by Angie Thomas. So this is actually the prequel to the super successful The Hate You Give, which came out in 2017, which I'm going to be honest, I had not yet read. So if you haven't read that one either, don't let that deter you, because as a prequel, this book obviously comes first, but it was honestly so great. Even if it was just a standalone novel, it was, you know, really good on its own anyway. So this book takes us back in time, literally, because everyone has like pagers. So it tells the story of Maverick, who is Star's father, as he navigates becoming a teen parent. This book was recommended to me by a fellow librarian, and it was honestly such a great read. It's the kind of book where you really like feel the characters. And I think like Angie Thomas, she really knows how to bring characters to life. Like you really feel like you know this guy. I thought it offered a really fresh perspective on teenage parenthood, because most of the time when you see that narrative in a book, it's the storylines from the mother's perspective. So hearing it from the father's first person perspective was really interesting and different. It was also really heartwarming. The character of Maverick has grown up in a pretty rough life. And he basically inherited this place within the gang that his family has historically been a part of. So, I mean, he's had a pretty rough life and has had to kind of grow up hard to make the best of it. So when he suddenly realizes he has a son and the full weight of that responsibility is put on him, it really requires some adjustment on his part as he tries to navigate being a parent and fit that into the life that he's living. You kind of get these glimpses through his interaction with his new son, as well as between Maverick and his own father, of these moments that are really tender and sweet and touching. And it's a real contrast to this other side of his life, being in a gang and dealing drugs and that kind of stuff. So through all of it, you really get this feeling that Maverick really wants to be a dad he wished that he had. And he's really trying to make it a priority despite everything else that's going on in his life. So I think the way this story challenges kind of stereotypes like toxic masculinity, and the way it speaks to issues around Black Lives Matter and that kind of stuff, kind of makes it a really important read. And, you know, it was really amazing, and I enjoyed the book thoroughly. So I definitely recommend it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chantel from the Meaford Public Library, and I've chosen 3 fiction books that I absolutely adore. The first book I have chosen is the fantasy book Accursed, So Dark and Lonely by New York Times bestselling author Bridget Kemmer. And this book is a retelling of the classic fairy tale Beauty and the Beast. However, in this case, Beauty is a girl named Harper with cerebral palsy living in Washington, D.C. And she gets kidnapped to the magical land known as Emberfall, where she meets the Beast, a normal-looking guy named Ren. Ren has tried many times to make girls fall in love with him and has failed every time, and he has one last attempt before the curse becomes permanent. So this book is perfect for people who love fairy tale retellings, especially ones with a twist. And it's also great for people who are tired of the love at first sight trope. After all, the first thing that Harper does when she gets kidnapped to this magical land is she tries to break out through her window. It's also the first book in a trilogy that's currently complete, so you can binge read the entire series, and it's recommended for ages 13 up. It was also a Goodreads Choice Awards nominee for Young Adult Fantasy and Science Fiction in 2019. Now, the next book I have is Fable by bestselling author Adrienne Young. And this book is about a girl named Fable who was abandoned 4 years ago by her traitor father on an island filled with thieves. For 4 years, Fable's been trying to get off this island, and she finally is able to with the help of a young trader named West. Together with his equally interesting crewmates who are hiding their own secrets, they must navigate the treacherous waters and dangerous enemies. Now, this book is a high stakes sea adventure. As I was reading it, I felt like I was a crewmate on West's ship, the Marigold. And having grown up on Georgian Bay, swimming and sailing, this book made me really ready to get back on the water. I would say it's also great for people who really love Pirates of the Caribbean growing up and just wants to be lost on a boat in the sea while reading in an afternoon. It's recommended for ages 12 and up and is the first in a duology. The second book was recently released, and I actually have it waiting at home for me, so you're able to read the entire series straight away. It's also listed as Reese Witherspoon and Hello Sunshine's YA Book Club pick, New York Times bestselling series, Indie List bestseller, and New York Public Library's Best Books of the Year. And the final fiction book I'll talk about is the fantasy Blade of Secrets by Trisha Levenseller. This book was released on May 4th, and I absolutely devoured it. I read this book in one sitting. I could not put it down. It's about an 18-year-old blacksmith named Ziva, who's able to enchant the weapon she creates with magic. However, one of the weapons she creates has the ability to steal people's secrets, so she enlists the help of her sister, a scholar, and a mercenary to try and keep it out of falling in the wrong hands. Now, one main aspect I really loved about this book is how real the characters feel. Ziva suffers from social anxiety, so the thought of talking to someone other than her sister basically gives her a panic attack. Now, I know I was really shy as a teenager, and I still have shy moments now, so I really related to Ziva as she's stressed and worried about what she would say to new people, and after conversation, she would kind of pick it apart and think of all the things she had said, so I really liked that representation. And all the characters were really fleshed out, all the minor characters. And there's even a scene where a scholar, he cries over some books that got ruined. And as a librarian, I really related to that. This book is appropriate for ages 13 and up and is the first in a duology. And the next book is set to come out next year. And I'm definitely counting down the days until then.
Hi everyone, my name is Cassie Wood and I work as the Youth Services Specialist at the Owen Sound and North Grey Union Public Library. The first book I chose to talk to you about is called Fat Chance Charlie Vega by Crystal Maldonado. And I loved this book. Coming of age stories are some of my favorite kinds to read. And that was only one of the reasons I loved Fat Chance by Charlie Vega. Fat Chance Charlie Vega. So if you like the book or movie Dumplin', which I absolutely love, this is a great choice for you. So Charlie, and look at this book cover. It's just absolutely stunning. So Charlie has everything going for her. She is smart, she's talented, she's driven, and she has big plans for the rest of her life. She's also fat. And that is a problem for some people who can't see past that when they meet her for the first time. I think part of why I love Charlie and her story is because I was able to relate to her high school experience. When she starts casually dating Brian, who's super cute, really athletic, and really cool, she finds out that she was actually his second choice because he actually wanted to date her best friend, who is tall and skinny, and all the things that Charlie's mom wishes that she was. So I loved this book because I think we are moving towards a movement of fat liberation and just body positivity, body respect for all people. And I also really love this book for the diversity of its characters. So I think it should be required reading for everyone. Okay, the next book I chose to talk about is called Parachutes by Kelly Yang. So I couldn't put this book down. I didn't read it in one sitting, but I maybe read it in two. So imagine leaving your ultra privileged life in Singapore to move to small town America to finish your last year of high school as a parachute kid. What is a parachute kid? So parachute kid is somebody who leaves their home behind, usually in Asia, and their parents stay behind too, and they are basically dropped into North America or Europe to study. So this is where Claire Wang finds herself. So she leaves her parents back home in Singapore, and she quickly adapts to her newfound freedom with her equally rich and beautiful friends. Oh, and the hottest parachute in school, Jay. Although it seems that Claire has it all, there is more to her than meets the eye. So parents who ignore her, but buy her things to cover their mistakes, and are more concerned with keeping up appearances than the feelings of their daughter. So Claire's American host sister, Danny, couldn't be less impressed with spoiled Claire. So Danny and her mom struggle to make ends meet, and ever the overachiever, Danny excels in school and is a champion debater, but has to struggle and fight for every opportunity that she gets. Things that opportunities girls like Claire take for granted. So the girls couldn't have less in common, and they awkwardly avoid each other in the house. But when they find themselves in similar devastating situations that bring attention to the Me Too movement and solidarity among girls, they do find common ground and ways to support each other. So this book for me was an exercise in empathy, class differences, and gender-based violence as well. So Kelly Yang brings her own life experiences to the story, making it feel very real. Kelly Yang is amazing. She's a brilliant writer. She writes juvenile fiction as well as YA, and she's just amazing. Big fan.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jade, and I'm the teen librarian at the Shelburne Public Library. Today, I want to start with an IT author for me, Courtney Summers. She has the ability to write really in-depth characters in these really thrilling scenarios that really draw you in, and I can't get enough of her. The project is no different, and here we meet sisters Lo and B, who have suffered immense tragedy throughout their lives, including losing their parents in a vehicle accident. Because of this, Lo and B come up against the Unity Project, though rarely at the same time. And some people say that the Unity Project and its leader, Lev Warren, are a godsend, where other people say or tell a more horrific story right before some tragedy befalls them. I think we all have good reason to suspect Lev Warren, and you're going to get these intense cult-like vibes right off the bat. This book is a standalone and probably best for those in high school, so I'd say grade 9 up. And the second fiction book I chose tonight is Charming as a Verb by Ben Philippe. I should mention that both of these books are also by Canadian authors. In Charming as a Verb, we meet Halty, who is a first-generation Haitian American with great big plans to go to Columbia University. He is able to charm everyone with these situation-specific smiles that he has, which is very helpful for a shady dog walking business that he's running. Now, he's able to charm everyone except for fellow classmate and neighbor, Corinne. We come to know her as Corey, and Corey calls him out on his shady dog walking business and basically blackmails him into changing her very intense image at their high school. Obviously, they fall in love right up until Halty makes a decision that is going to have drastic impacts on his future and Corinne's family. I'd say, again, this is best for our high school age friends, so grade 9 and up, and is also a standalone title.
Okay, so in case you missed it, I'm Crystal from the Southgate Library. So the first title I chose was The Ashlords, which is first in the series. The second book has already been released. So this story follows 3 riders in a race. Sorry, I lost myself. 3 riders in a race, and their horses are not normal horses. They're made of ashes and alchemy. So every morning you rise them with different abilities, and then every night they die again to be risen again in the morning with a different set of abilities. So what I really liked about it is that the 3 different perspectives. So it switched back and forth from 3 different characters so that you're seeing the race through different eyes each time, which I really enjoyed. I also like the world that he created. It's a world that has different levels to it. So there's gods, and then there's the next rank down, and then the next rank down, and the next one down. So each 3 riders are from a different part of society, which I thought was sort of nifty. I did read book 2, so that's saying something, because if I didn't like the first one, I probably wouldn't have picked up the second book. It's a dystopian kind of style fantasy. So if that's your kind of thing, then it may be worth checking out. It's pretty safe for all ages, I'd say, so 13 plus. That's about it for that one. So I just like to point out how pretty this cover is. That's kind of what drew me to it in the first place, was just the cover. And you'll see right on it that it's one of the Reese Witherspoon's book clubs. This book's gotten a lot of hype. They're making it into a Netflix adaptation pretty soon, I think. So it follows an Ojibwe teen who's kind of growing up, not knowing where she fits in her society. So in the story, she witnesses a murder and she ends up going undercover for the FBI to investigate a new lethal drug. So there are some mature themes in this one. So I'd say it's for a bit older teen, maybe 16 plus. It is a long book, but I think some long books, they can seem pretty dreadful, but this one wasn't so bad. I liked it. It is also available in audiobook through Libby too. And what I liked most about it probably was just the exposure to the Native culture. I haven't really read a lot of books with a Native theme to it, so that was nice, especially with Indigenous History Month being recently. So that's pretty much it for that one. And I think that's our last fiction pick. So next we're moving on to graphic novels.
So this is the graphic novel that I chose, which is Fangirl the Manga. And this is an adaptation of the YA book bestselling author Rainbow Rowell's story. And the manga tells the tale of Kath, who, along with her twin sister, is about to start college. As they're about to start, her twin says that she doesn't want to be roommates, which kind of leaves Kath floundering, trying to figure out what to do. She's forced to meet some new people, make new roommate friends, have a new roommate, meet new friends. And the main thing about Kath is that she's an avid Simon Snow fan, which is basically a version of Harry Potter in this world. She's obsessed with it. She writes fan fiction for it, and she's not ready to leave it behind. So this book's really great for people who are into fandoms. I myself am a very big Harry Potter fan, and I know I still kind of ask people what house they're in when I meet them. And so I really related to Kath's kind of her obsession and her love of Simon Snow. And while this book is for ages 13 up, I really think it's good for teens who are about to start college or university or have already started college or university, because it really showcases how people sometimes grow apart and how they develop different interests and how all that is okay. So I think it's a really good book for people who are just kind of starting on their own and trying to kind of experience different things as they move on. This is the first volume with 4 volumes planned, and was also Goodreads Best Graphic Novel and Comics nominee in 2020.
So this next one that I chose is part of the Heartstopper series by Alice Oseman. It is absolutely the cutest book I have read in a really long time. Thank you. I lost the view. Okay, so this is absolutely the cutest book I've read in a long time. I'm so excited to talk about this book with you. So I am so invested in this story. I devour each volume as they get released. They're so good. They're so charming. And this story is set in England with high school students, and it follows the story of Nick and Charlie. So Charlie is bright, he's really clever, but he's also very tightly wound. So the previous year he was outed without his knowledge or his permission, and was unfortunately bullied by many of his peers. Yes, Caitlin, Heartstopper is so good. Thank you. So when he meets Nick, a sweet and charming rugby player, Charlie is smitten, but he's convinced that Nick is straight and keeps his crush a secret. So their friendship becomes closer and closer, but could the crush be mutual? Alice Oseman has been writing the series for quite a while, and she's only recently turned 26. She does the art and she does the writing for it. I love her art style so much. And she captures this nearly universal experience of nursing secret crushes in a way that feels very real and believable. So both these characters are so intensely likable and sweet, you can't help but cheer on their happiness. So the supporting cast is also wonderful and diverse, and I love the way that Alice Oseman deals with homophobia, bullying, and consent. So really big themes that are done in a really age-appropriate way. So far, there are 4 volumes of this graphic novel, and I hope there are more on the way because they're just stellar. And I think I would recommend that probably for grades 8 and up, maybe even 7. I also chose a Rainbow Roll book, another graphic novel. It's called Pumpkinheads, and it was illustrated by Faith Erin Hicks. So fall is my favorite season, and it is the perfect backdrop for this sweet and adorable book. So Deja and Josiah have worked together every fall at the most famous pumpkin patch around. This is their last season working together, and Josiah is bound and determined to tell one of his other coworkers, whose name he doesn't even know, that he's been crushing on her since they started working at the pumpkin patch. So Deja helps Josiah find this mystery girl, but of course, chaos ensues, leading to some difficult truths for both friends. So like the other books I've recommended, this book features a beautifully diverse cast and is really just a fun and gentle love story. Oh dear. So it brought back so many memories of unrequited crushes from high school, and the artwork is just stunning. I love Faith Erin Hicks's work. The characters are so likable, and the dialogue is whip smart and so funny. This book made me want to down a pumpkin spice latte, so maybe save this one for September, but it's such a good read.
That is great. For my first graphic novel, I picked the Lumberjanes series, which are all also really feel-good stories set, and excuse me for reading this, at Miss Quinzilla Thisquin Penny Queequel Thistle Crumpets Camp for Hardcore Lady Types. And here we meet a really diverse cast with lots of members all along the LGBTQA+ spectrum. And they're celebrated and accepted just for who they are. And in fact, when they meet these mythical creatures, which they always seem to do in each of the volumes, it's really their personalities and their individual skills that allow them to kind of overcome the conflict with these mythical creatures. There are a few subtle hints at romance within this series, but I'd say it's pretty minimal and also very gentle. So it would be appropriate for our younger teen friends too, probably grades 7 and up. And then I think this is a pretty tough but timely title, especially given the news we all received today. If I Go Missing is a graphic novel and was also made into a documentary born out of a letter that Brianna Johnny, a real life teen, sent to the chief of police in the city of Winnipeg, basically questioning why the cases of missing and murdered Indigenous people are not investigated with the same fervor as their white counterparts. It's really, really heartbreaking. The art and inside it is fantastic. And probably the most heartbreaking part about this story is Brianna Johnny asks us and leaves us urging not to treat her like the Indigenous person she's proud to be if she's reported missing, but instead to treat her like a white teenager to make sure she's found. So really powerful, and I think important for everyone to read. It's a Red Maple pick for this year. But I just say keep in mind how tough the topics are within this one.
So my first graphic novel I chose is Something's Killing the Children. I really love this book. Basically, as soon as I finished reading it, which I read it all in one day, I went and I ordered part 2. That's how much I loved it, and every teen I've given it to so far has liked it too. So basically, it follows this really awesome lead character called Erica Slaughter, and she works for this secret society who hunts and kills monsters. Monsters that no one else can see really except for children, because that's who the monsters are killing. So there's this small town, that's where it starts in, children start dying, Erica shows up. Of course, she's met with some resentment and suspicion by the local authorities and some of the people who were involved with the children who got killed. But I just found it a really engaging story. I love the characters, I love the plot, I love the art, I basically love everything about it. There is a lot of gore in it. At first, like, I watch a lot of scary movies, but at first I was like, that's shocking. But then I kind of got used to it. There's also a lot of language too, but honestly, if you're watching scary movies already, it's probably nothing that you haven't already been exposed to, but definitely for the more mature reader. There are 3 volumes that have been published. I think the 3rd volume's just been published this month. So yeah, if you're into scary graphic novels with a really good story, then check it out. So the second one is actually volumes 1 through 12 published into one book. So they've made 3 of these yearbook collections. So I don't know how many volumes it is in total, but all of them have been published now. So this follows a high school that was transported into an alien world. So just all of a sudden they're on another planet that has monsters and creatures and an environment that they know nothing about. So it follows a diverse set of characters. This kind of switches back and forth from different groups. I really like the artwork. I really like the characters. I like the story. It kind of has the same feel to to the first book I mentioned. Like it's similar. If you read the first, you'll kind of know what I'm talking about if you read this one. But I really like it, and I recommend. It's not as gory or has as much language as the first one, but it's definitely more for a mature audience. I think that's it for our graphic novels. So next we have our nonfiction.
So the next book I am going to talk about is Funny, You Don't Look Autistic, A Comedian's Guide to Life on the Spectrum. So this is a biography written by Michael McCreary. Michael is a comedian who is on the autism spectrum, and this biography talks about his life growing up on the spectrum and the struggles that he faced early on and kind of later on, just making his way and fitting in, and basically things we all kind of struggle with. He talks about how learning to stand up for himself and others really was the beginning to his comedic career. By using comedy, he felt he could reshape the way that other people saw people with psychological and neurological variations. So it was really important to him to advocate not only for himself, but for others as well. Of course, being a comedian, Michael's written this book in a very comedic fashion. And while it's very informative about the struggles someone with autism may face, it was first and foremost hilarious. From these really funny flow charts about how to tactfully approach a potential acquaintance, to a visual guide of reading people's emotion through their facial expressions, which, spoiler alert, they all look the exact same to him. Michael really brings home the feeling that growing up is hard, and it's hard for everyone. I do think that, of course, for someone on the spectrum, these challenges can most definitely be greater and intensified in a lot of situations. But I also think that a lot of neurotypical people will relate to the awkwardness and the struggles that he describes at times. I really liked this book because of its approachability too. In terms of reading level, I think it really could be good for anyone from kind of upper elementary school all the way through to adults. I think it's, again, really approachable and easy to read. Even though the book can most definitely be like a teaching tool for neurotypicals to see things from a person with autism's perspective, it's by no means preachy. I really felt like Michael just manages to speak to everybody with this book. And again, it was just such a funny and cute read. Another highly recommend.
So for my first nonfiction title, I chose this book as Antiracist by Tiffany Jewell. And I want to start off, I don't know if you guys can see this, but it's absolutely beautiful on the inside, which makes it really easy to engage with. It's a pretty concise tool that anyone could use to assess how they kind of look at the world and develop the tools to see our own prejudices. It also tells the histories we weren't taught in school pretty eloquently, which was refreshing and great to see. The personal anecdotes and the chapter reviews, I know that sounds like school, but I promise it's not. It really allows the messages of each of the chapters to be brought home for the reader, and they actually suggest getting a notebook when you start this, just so you can work through all the little activities. Ultimately, it gives us a set of tools to become anti-racist. And I think, again, I would recommend it for pretty well everyone. And then lastly, I'd like to talk about the resilient teen. And while I think this is for an older teen myself, not because there's anything inappropriate in it, but it is very text heavy. It broadly breaks down into 4 sections and helps us focus on our physical, mental, and emotional health, tells us how to kind of engage with the world, and then ultimately how to find meaning and joy. It gives common and real life scenarios that can cause a lot of stress alongside these really practical tools on how to handle them. And what I really liked about this was it doesn't assume that people need to be perfect when they're approaching these scenarios, but they give you some tools and then let you assess your own personality alongside that to come out the other side of stressful situations intact.
Okay, so I chose this book, Shout. So this one is a, oh, am I good? Yeah, this one's a poetic memoir of a woman who was raped when she was a teenager. So it's done in verse, which at first I was like, poetry, because I've never really been a big poetry fan, but it's not like rhyming poetry. It's more sort of sentences. I don't know enough about poetry to kind of like tell you what kind of poetry it is. But I thought that she wrote really well. She just has a way of making you kind of see where she's coming from, kind of to feel her emotion, and she does it so beautifully. So she talks about everything from, you know, her parents' life before her to her own youth to her jobs, to it just kind of highlights different parts of her life through verse. So I thought it was just a really good book. It did get quite a lot of reviews when it first came out, I think. I'm not a nice reader. I don't read eloquently, but I did just want to read the prologue just for anyone who's hesitant to read poetry, just to kind of see that it's really not as bad as you think. So, and I'm the last one, so I don't feel bad making you guys listen to me. Okay, so this is the prologue, so it's basically the first book. This book smells like me. Wood smoke, salt, honey and strawberries, sunscreen, libraries, failures and sweat. Green nights in the mountains, cold dawns by the sea. This book reeks of my fear, of depression's black dogs howling, and the ancient shames riding my back, their claws buried deep. This book is yesterday's mud, dried on the dance floor, the step patterns cautiously submitted for your curious investigation of what I feel like on the inside. So it's verse, but it's also sentences, and I think it's really pretty. So if you want to check that out, it's a really good read. It does have like some mature themes, but it doesn't really go into detail. So maybe like 14 plus for this one. So that's all of our books that I have. I'm really thankful for everybody who helped us out to do this today and everybody who came out to watch. I know there was lots of comments on books, but if anybody has any questions they'd like to ask about any of the books presented, now's a great time to put them into the chat. And then we'll have Helens read them if you do put anything in there. Also, if you are a Southgate teen, you do get a ballot for the summer reading prize for coming tonight. So shoot me a message on Instagram or email or whoever we chat together and let me know that you showed up tonight. But yeah, if anyone has any other comments or questions, go ahead and put them in there. Or if any other libraries want to say anything too, go for it. Oh, I do see some questions popping up.
Is there a list of books we could get? I think pretty much all of the libraries that are here would have a list. So if you're interested, you can ask your library.
And don't forget we're recording too, Emily. So you can view this again later once your library posts it.
That's it.
I see Caitlin. Caitlin's asked for book 3. Yeah, I did order it, so I just have to wait for it to come in and I'll let you know. Okay, well, if that's it for everybody, then I guess we'll close up today. So thank you for coming, and I hope that you found some books that you want to try out. And thank you to all the libraries who participated tonight.